Dear students, welcome to the 40th session of 2nd BA Optional English, prescribed by the Mangalore University. This is Sumana Rajendra, Associate Professor, Department of English, Purna Prajna College, Udupi. Today, I am going to deal with the topic narrative technique and style of Dickens in the novel The Pickwick Papers. The narrator is many times the central figure in novels. A narrator often lends words to the author's thoughts. A narrator shapes the story, delivers the storyline, and expresses his point of view. The narrator can be either direct or indirect. An author can use a range of narrative techniques in his novels. It is up to him to choose whether the narration should be in first person, second person, or the third person. The narrator in the novel can play the main role, that is, he can be the protagonist and also he can be the narrator. The narrator can also be a minor character. For example, in Wuthering Heights, you have a minor character playing the narrator. The narrator can also be a combination of characters. The narrator can even play the role of an omniscient role as a storyteller who does not appear in the story but stands apart and tells the story and makes the readers involved in the story. Charles Dickens, the author of the novel The Pickwick Papers, is considered one of the greatest writers in English literature. In today's session, we are going to see what was the technique, that is, what was the narrative technique used by Dickens in this novel. His works have survived for more than 150 years. Charles Dickens has authored more than 20 novels. The most surprising thing is his novels impress readers even to this day. You have all of his novels read by people over and over again. Now let us look at Dickens's dramatic technique. In all of Dickens's novels, we find pictures and dramatic events. That was Dickens's specialty, using the dramatic technique. Dickens's pictures are an essential part of the fabric of his narratives. In fact, the pictures come alive. Readers feel that they are directly involved in the story. His pictures convey meanings in themselves. The images that he presents in his novels sets the imagination of the readers. Charles Dickens has worked the Pickwick Papers into a coherent, unified story. The novel begins with the working of the machinery of the club, the travel stories, and the note taking by the Pickwickians. It is Samuel Pickwick, the protagonist in the novel, who at the beginning of the novel forms the Pickwick Club. Later on, it is the adventures, their experiences, which make up the coherent story. Later in the novel, we find an omniscient third person narrator taking over the narrative. This narrator has special preferences. The narrator presents the characters dramatically. Dickens's theatre sense gives the novel a sense of importance. Dickens has used his intense imagination, and this has made almost all the 150 characters in the novel come alive. Not a single character in the novel goes unnoticed. The narrator in this novel is witty, shrewd, observant, flexible, inventive, and above all, he is humane. Let us see how Dickens has used the coaches, which is a special technique used in the novel. The way the novel progresses, it gives a lasting literacy expression to the coaching days period of English life. Dickens creates the romance of the coach through his treatment of it in the novel. Coaches are presented as a source of adventure in the novel. Since the novel is a combination of linear adventures, all these adventures take place in coaches. An interpolated tale also revolves round the adventure in a deserted mail coach. Coaches encourage adventures because they throw strangers in the company of each other. Later, we have Mr. Pickwick encountering many fateful characters during the coach rides. Therefore, we can say that Dickinson's use of the coaches in the novel as a means of transportation has really highlighted the narrative technique. Another narrative technique used by Dickens is the locales. There is something very interesting with the various locales that are presented during the Pickwickian travels. Locales means the various places visited by the four stalwarts of the Pickwick Club. The various places they visit have one story or the other to tell. Each locale takes on a distinct emotional coloring to suit the action. Every place Mr. Pickwick visits has a direct bearing on his character development. This is even more interesting. Every single place he goes, every character he meets in those locales, they have indirectly or directly, they affect his character. London takes the entire place in the novel as it is a home base of the Pickwickians. Rochester is another place which signifies innocence. Dingley Dell represents a kind of Eden. It is in this place that we have a marriage taking place and you have the festivities of Christmas that takes place. Therefore, it is a kind of Eden in the novel. Eatanswill, Bury St. Edmunds, and Ipswich somehow symbolize deception. It is in these three places that Mr. Pickwick encounters trouble. The Christmas visit to Dingley Dell recharges Pickwick's faith in human goodness. Bath is presented as a center of snobbery. Bristol reinstates Mr. Pickwick's positive qualities as deception ends there at that place. The debtor's prison becomes a place of forgiveness and charity. Though the horrors of the debtor prison is presented later, it is in this place that the rehabilitation of Jingle and his friend Job Trotter takes place. Mr. Pickwick and Sam single handedly humanize the place. A final trip to Bristol symbolizes a romantic adventure. At the end, London is seen changing with the return of Mr. Pickwick. As we have already seen, London is the main place where almost all the action of the novel takes place. So finally, when Mr. Pickwick ends there, London changes. Dickens shows the hero's moral development through external events. Now we come to the MCQs. Let us see what are the questions we have on this session. First of all, we saw that Charles Dickens has authored a certain number of novels. What is the number? Is it 10, 20, 50, or 100? We see that it is 20. I hope you have seen this earlier. Dickens gives the novel a sense of importance. What is that special feature in Dickens that heightens the narrative technique in the novel? Is it his imagination? Is it his narrative technique? Is it his style? Or is it his theatre sense? We see that it is his theatre sense. Now we have something which adds as a source of adventure in the novel, whether they are parties, coaches, debtor's prison, or it's none of the above. Well, we have already seen that it is the coaches. We have discussed this earlier, how the coaches in the novel present a source of adventure in the novel. We find a particular place taking the center place in the novel. Which is that place? We have come across this earlier. The question is, do we remember which is the place? Is it London? Is it Rochester? Is it Eatanswill? Or is it something else? Well, the answer is London. Now, Christmas visit to a particular place recharges Pickwick's faith in human goodness. Which is that place? It is very special. In fact, in the novel, we have this place equated with Eden, Eatanswill, Rochester, Dingley Dell, or it's none of the above. It is Dingley Dell. So we come to the session 40. Thank you very much.